Paddy here. Welcome to our fourth online poetry reading, and this evening I'll be reading, as normal, 5 poems, but this week the themes are music and sport. First of all, a big shout out to my charity and foundation, the Rise Foundation. That's www.therisefoundation.ie, and in particular, as you know, my poetry is more of a hobby, and all the readings and all the writings, the proceeds go directly to the Rise Foundation. At this stage, I'd just like to mention particularly our CEO there, Francis Black, who, along with Mary Black, Mary Coughlin and Sharon Shannon, and a number of other hosts, our guests on the Late Late Show last Friday night, raised over 2 million for that other wonderful charity, Pieta House, and what they do around suicide prevention. So we're now 63 days since the schools closed and the lockdown began in earnest. I hope that everybody's still all doing well as we try and remain safe and sound. As the next review date comes into focus, I think it's tomorrow. Like the good weather we're having, there appears to be some light at the end of this COVID tunnel, and I suppose it's very important that we all stay very focused and clear and following the guidelines. So on to tonight's theme, the music and sport. Again, a 3 and 2 mix of poems, including 2 of my all-time favourites, one on each theme. I welcome you back inside the house here, which is where we started off on the very first reading, and that was just literally on the room upstairs and overhead here. So you're back in Tarbert on the Shannon Estuary behind me. I often call this room the most lived room in the house. I suppose we're a typical house of its time in that it was built, as I mentioned before, around 1850, has 6 large rooms, really, a kitchen, dining room, this is what we call the dining room, the living room above, and then 3 bedrooms. I honestly think myself that apart from the interiors, the makeup has never changed, and certainly not in the last 70 years since this has become our family home. But I think there's a preservation order both inside and outside the house, in my view. The room itself contains a huge amount of history and family history on the topic of music and sport. It brings back many memories for me of street and family parties and big sing-songs here. All Ireland's won and lost. I have a lovely memory here, just thinking of this evening, that I came from a very GA background, and my dad didn't allow, as he called it, the foreign games into the house until quite late in his life. But in 1970, the World Cup was coming live from Mexico into the room here, and I was watching England play Brazil in that famous match in Guadalajara, I think. I can't remember the location, but so he was on his way into bed here, and he leant over the chair, and we both watched that match together. It was his first soccer match ever. It was also that famous night when Gordon Banks of England probably made one of the best saves ever made in the world from a header. Brazil went on to win 1-0. The old enemy were beaten, and my dad and myself celebrated that kind of cause. So lots of memories around the room. I'll tell you more about them as we go through the different poems. But I'd like to get on first and foremost to the very first poem. And tonight it's an actual poem, literally just simply called Music, and I'll explain it in a minute. I want to dedicate it to a neighbour of mine here, Tomás Coollahan, who actually has his 50th birthday today. We grew up beside the Coollahans, but Tomás is a very big happy birthday. Tomás himself is a wonderful singer, and he in fact is the current keeper of this particular song, which is up here on my left. I hope you can see it. It's an old Portuguese hymn that my mother brought from secondary school in Kilshamagh in County Mayo, which she learned herself in the 1930s. Brought it to here, and Tomas, as I said, is the keeper of this song. He's recovering from a very serious illness. He's doing fantastically well. I met him on the street today. His recovery is well on track. So this particular poem, as I said, is music. It's appropriate that I read it today. First of all, it's by the Greek philosopher Plato. Now, Plato was born in 428 BC. He was a student of Socrates and a teacher of Aristotle. His writings explored justice, beauty and equality, and also contained discussions on political philosophy, theology, cosmology, and the philosophy of language. Plato founded the Academy in Athens, one of the first institutions of higher learning in the Western world. He died in Athens in around 348 BC. So this is a short poem. It's called Music by Plato. Music is a moral law. It gives soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, a charm to sadness, gaiety and life to everything. It is the essence of order and lends to all that is good, just and beautiful. So that kind of sets the tone for the theme of music. I love that piece myself. Love that piece about music being the moral law. There's a great scene from the field, which also refers to the Yank and the Bull McCabe, when the Yank says, this is the law of the land, the moral law, and of course the Bull McCabe comes back and says there's a law greater than all of that, the law of the land. Anyway, that's just making the connection between music, Greece, Greek scholars, and today. So I'm going to move on quickly and take you across the room here to talk about GAA, football and Dublin. And I'm going to read my own poem, The Kick. However, the story behind all of this is that, we're as I mentioned, as people would know us as a strong GAA family. But it's, first of all, this actually, and the picture you're seeing in front of you, is the 2011 All-Ireland final. It's the scene in Croke Park as Stephen Cluxton kicks the winning point against Kerry. 2 years later, this picture that you're seeing now has me in my Kerry jersey, along with my beautiful granddaughter, Stephanie, at a match, and you wouldn't get a more ardent GAA Dublin supporter than Stephanie. And this was taken, and I actually like it was taken by one of the Sports File photographers, and it says, 1st of September 2013, it was for her 7th birthday, I remember, a Kerry and a Dublin supporter after the match, GAA football All-Ireland Senior Championship semi-final, Dublin versus Kerry, Croke Park. Picture credit to Brian Lawless. And as you can see there, it was afterwards signed by Stephen Cluxton for both Stephanie and myself. So I'm going to read how I captured that kick that I suppose the annals of folklore and history, and certainly GAA history. Dublin hadn't beaten Kerry since 1976, changed dramatically since, and we haven't beaten them since 2011. But as I said, the kick, I wrote it at the time in memory of Kevin Heffernan, RIP, who had brought Dublin so much glory and success in the 70s. The kick. Walking up, facing the hill, into the mists of time past, the ghosts of Heffo's army, Now it's down to me, my left foot, taking aim, pigskin on the way, aloft, alone, airborne. Boot to black spot, white flag raised, scoreboard dancing in sky blue and navy, up and away from the green and gold. Jogging back effortlessly, game one. Croke Park standing shoulder to shoulder, people of Kerry salute in their thousands too. That lifelong kingdom tormentor, a football inferno quenched, forever, never. So that's that tribute to that wonderful occasion and the great sporting rivalry that has developed over the years between Dublin and Kerry. My next poem is one that combines, in fact, the reading is going to combine a little bit on music and a little bit on football. As you can see here behind me, if I can get over here a little bit, a beautiful piece of artwork done by my great friend and co-host or writer of my first book of poetry, Olive Stack, where she has actually hand-painted the actual notes of Galway Bay, along with a poem that I wrote at the time. So yeah, it's a beautiful piece of work. It was, I think, a birthday tribute to my late mother, who brought music into this room and brings back great memories of lots of, as I said, sing-songs and all of that. So what I'm going to do here is, because we had the anniversary of my mum and dad last Monday week. My mum would have been 5 years, her anniversary, and my dad passed away actually here in this room on the 12th of December 1987 from a heart attack, sitting down in the chair. Anyway, I'm going to read, the next two readings are, they're actually extracts from two separate poems, if I can find them now. The first one, I think it's going to be, it's from a poem in the second collection there called 1958. Just read a paragraph that talks about my memory of my mother singing in public for the first time. So it's 1958, I was 8 years of age, and I was an altar boy serving at midnight mass. 1958 also brought me to midnight mass. Some say you sang like Shirley Bassey, holding a high C for eternity and me. I heard you play and sing for the last time as nurses ran in, stunned and surprised, just a week before my Shirley Bassey died. And that actually happened in the community hospital in Listowel. We brought in a keyboard into my mum. She was there after a turn, as we say, in April, May of 2015, and she played that day just a week before she died, and she sang a song which I had never heard her sing before, and we just caught it at the time and were able to record it. So that's that one. On my dad's side, because as I said, we in terms of the football and my memory of him, as I said, and he had a huge interest in football, huge interest in sport generally. He was of that era when, prior to television, we had the match on a Sunday with the wireless and me hollow hair. But whatever interest I suppose I got from being very young, it came from him, and he spent a lot of time out in our garden, like all fathers do nowadays, or just showing their kids how to play football. So I'm going to read a few verses of this for you. It's Ode to a Mortuary Card, and this is a memory of my dad. You placed the ball on the black spot just outside our open-sided turf house. Never just a shed in your head, a restful hideaway instead. A home for black sods and beach logs. My lumberjack dad says it's break time ahead. a green-handled bushman's in your left hand, but only green and gold in your head. This is how it's done, you said. Pick your spot, straight ahead, shot run up, straight and true, over it goes, beyond the street lights too. A reassuring smile, a contented man, bushman still in his hand, another job to be done, eye contact only, but just in time to hear you say, in Kerry, our talking is done on the field of play. He had that lovely saying that we never talked about victories or any of that kind of stuff once the game was over. So I'm moving on now. I'm going to take you to a poem by Gabriel Fitzmaurice, and particularly to still staying with the theme of sport and the GAA. And as you can see here beside me is another part of the history in this room. It has particular resonance in that it's 1975 and it was that great turnabout for us in Kerry, and we won all three competitions, senior, minor and under 21 All-Ireland Championships. It's a photograph, or actually the front page of the local paper the week after. From a local club point of view here in Tarbert, we actually had 4 of our club players involved over the 3 teams. We had Patsy Skin O'Connell, my good friend, on the panel at that time for the senior team. On the minor team we had Fintan Scannell and they beat Tyrone. And on the under-21 team we had Gerard O'Sullivan and the late Tommy Bridgman play on that under-21 final. And so here on this side, so it had a great, fantastic kind of connection at local level. However, the poem I'm going to read you is a poem of reconciliation, really, and it's, for me anyway, the best GAA poem I have ever read. It's by, as I said, local poet Gabriel Fitzmaurice, who lives in From-My-Van, or the next village from here. And it, I suppose, when we talked about history, and I didn't mention much about it here so far, but it's GAA and indeed music is always linked somehow with politics, and particularly in Kerry, with the War of Independence and the subsequent Civil War, there was a lot of pain and a lot of hurt all over the country, but particularly here. And to a point, if my memory serves me correctly, football wasn't played in Kerry for 2 years after the War of Independence. And then came 1924. And I suppose even in the house here, both my parents, one came from a very Republican on my dad's side, and my mum would have come from an equally nationalist side, but very much linked with the Michael Collins side of that particular Civil War. But I'm going to read, I think it's a lovely, lovely poem from the point of view that it carries across, I suppose, that message around reconciliation and the horrors of war, really, and how the GAA has played such a major role in rectifying that. So, this, as I said, it's the Munster football final of 1924. Now, just again to give you people like you'll hear mentioned on this are famous Kerry footballers. John Joe Sheehy was very much on the Republican side, and Con Brosnan from Ivan was very much a Free State captain in the Free State Army. Football final 1924 by Gabriel Fitzmaurice. Nothing polarizes like a war. And of all wars, a civil war is war. It takes a century to heal the scars, and even then, some names remain accursed. The tragedy of Kerry open wounds. John Joe Sheehy on the run in 24. The Munster final in the Gaelic grounds, there's something more important here than war. John Joe Sheehy, centre forward, Republican. Con Brosnan, Free State captain, centre field. For what they love, they put down the gun. On Con's safe conduct, Sheehy takes the field. In an hour, the Kerry team will win. Sheehy will vanish on Brosnan's bond again. As I said, a lovely poem of reconciliation and harmony, and have to say, driven by the GAA. So I'm on to the final and last poem, and this time we're going to end with a song. No, you don't have to worry. I'm not going to break out into a song or anything like that. The name of the poem is that wonderful William Butler Yeats beautiful poem, The Song of Wandering Angus. I'm actually going to just going to stand up here for a second and give you some of the background in this. This one is a beautiful publication, The Song of Wandering Angus, and I'll just give you a read what the cover note says about it. And I should also mention that if you haven't already gone to see that exhibition of Yeats's work in the National Library in there beside All Erin, it's a wonderful exhibition about the life of William Butler Yeats. So I'm going to read just the cover notes of The Song of Wandering Angus. It says here, in one of William Butler Yeats' most beautiful lyrics, it tells the story of a love, fleeting experience and lost forever. The poem was inspired by Maud Gonne, a passionate young Irish revolutionary with whom Yeats fell hopelessly in love. Repeatedly rejected by her, he turned to ancient Irish mythology to find expression for his loss and yearning. By giving voice to his most personal emotions in the age-old story of Angus, the young Yeats crafted a poem that continues to speak to us today. In this reinterpretation of, it's very much a picturesque, beautiful production of the poem itself, and it has a picture for every line of the poem. However, that might just take me too long to read it from that. So I'm going to read it from one of, it's the poems by, edited by Daniel Albright. And it's The Song of Wandering Angus by William Butler Yeats. I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossoms in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone and kiss her lips and take her hands and walk among long dappled grass and pluck till time and times are done the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. That was written in 1897, and it came from his publication, The Wind Among the Reeds. So they're the 5 poems for this evening. I hope you enjoyed them as always, as much as I enjoyed reading them, and gave me, that great kind of link, particularly in these times. I think that returning to things like poetry, for me anyway, has given me a great sense of grounding in this particular difficult enough period. We've done really well, I think, as a country and as individuals, with, as I said, 63 days gone since the schools closed. So again, thank you for coming in, and thank you for visiting here with me in my home. As always, I give a big shout out to that other man who has a show completely different to mine on country music and all kinds of music on a Saturday night. That's Kerry Dave. He's also live on Facebook next Saturday night. So until next Thursday, and I will be again hopefully reading 5 more poems, this time on the theme nature and nurture, I say good night. Thank you for joining me, and hope you stay safe and well over the coming days. Slán agus beannacht.